Welcome back to Conversations That Awaken by Joe Bandra. If you've been with us since episode 1, thank you for taking this journey with us. Over the first 10 episodes, we've questioned many of the assumptions most of us inherited without ever examining them. We've explored the nature of reality, the illusion of separation, the origins of belief, the question of God, the self-organizing universe, the fact of being, the limits of language, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. You may have noticed that we've returned to some of the same ideas more than once. That wasn't by accident. Some truths cannot be understood by hearing them only once. They must be approached from different angles, examined through different lenses, and reflected upon until they become your own direct insight. Repetition is not about convincing you, it is about inviting you to observe more deeply. Our purpose has never been to give you another belief system. It has always been to encourage you to examine, question, investigate, and ultimately understand for yourself. Because borrowed knowledge is information. Direct experience, on the other hand, is transformation. If you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to begin with episode 1. Each conversation builds upon the previous one, forming a journey from questioning the world to questioning the one who believes they are separate from it. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening. Take a moment to become fully present. Set aside, just for a little while, everything you think you know. And together, let's question everything. I am Kim. I hope you had the opportunity to read or listen to Finding Neve by Joe Bandra. The name Neve, heaven spelled backward, symbolizes a journey of self-discovery, an inward return to the source of true happiness. It is an invitation to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, rediscover our authentic nature, and awaken to the peace and wholeness that have always been within us.
Right now, there is a 100% chance that you are going to die.
Wow. Yeah, diving right in.
I mean, we might as well just get it out there,
Yeah,
right? But seriously, if you are anything like me, you will probably spend your afternoon today worrying significantly more about, say, your neighbor's questionable landscaping decision.
Oh, totally. The hostas versus hydrangeas debate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, a mildly annoying work email rather than actually thinking about your own mortality.
Yeah, we really do that.
We do. And I just have to ask why? Like, why are we so obsessed with controlling these tiny, insignificant daily details while we just completely actively ignore the massive, undeniable realities of simply being alive?
Well, honestly,
Yeah.
because it is genuinely terrifying to do otherwise. I mean, if you actually sit down and look at the big picture,
Right.
the relentless, exhausting chase for success, the desperate search for some kind of meaning in all this chaos, and the fact that, well, this entire experience is temporary.
Yeah.
It shatters that comfortable little illusion of control we've spent our whole lives building.
It really does.
So we would much rather argue about hedges. It's just safer.
It is safer. But welcome to the deep dive, everyone, because today we are skipping the hedges entirely.
No landscaping talk today.
None. We are tackling the biggest, heaviest, most universal human pursuits and anxieties that you, me, and everyone else on this planet are dealing with, like, on a daily basis.
We are looking at what it actually takes to navigate existence without that constant gnawing sense of psychological lack.
That feeling that you're just somehow always falling behind.
Exactly.
And to do this, we have some absolutely incredible grounding material today. We are diving deep into excerpts from the highly anticipated upcoming book, The Nature of Reality, written by Joe Bandra.
Yes.
I really want you to keep that name, Joe Bandra, and that title in mind, because before we even get into the deep insights, you need to know where this is coming from.
The concepts he unpacks in this work are going to fundamentally challenge the default settings you've likely been operating with your entire adult life.
Literally your whole life. So our mission today is to basically extract Bandra's blueprint for living without that psychological lack.
Right.
And to help you radically reframe your relationship with achievement, your relationship with your own purpose, and, yes, your relationship with your own inevitable mortality.
It's a big agenda.
It's a huge agenda. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with the water we all swim in, which is success. We are almost pathologically obsessed with it as a species.
Oh, absolutely.
Entire global industries, from, self-help empires to university marketing departments, they are built entirely around the promise of delivering success to you.
Right, like they can just hand it to you in a box.
Exactly. Yet the fascinating psychological quirk here is that if you stop 10 people on the street and ask them to define what success actually is, you will get 10 completely different, often highly contradictory answers.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for one person, it's hitting a very specific, highly mathematical number in their investment portfolio.
Right.
Like accumulating capital is the only metric they care about.
Right.
But for another person, it's purely about influence, having a massive platform, swaying public opinion, being a thought leader.
Yeah, the social capital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then somebody else will tell you it's simply raising kind children and having a quiet, stable home in the suburbs.
Which is incredibly valid.
Totally.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, let's be honest, success is literally just surviving a brutal 80-hour work week without completely losing your sanity.
Just making it to Friday.
Making it to Friday in one piece with your nervous system intact is a massive victory.
And that reality right there highlights the core psychological trap we fall into. Success is entirely subjective.
It's a moving target.
Yes, it is constructed by culture, inherited from our parents, and shaped by our own specific insecurities.
So true.
And failure suffers from the exact same subjectivity problem. One person's absolute identity-destroying disaster is another person's golden opportunity.
Wait, yeah, let's talk about that. Like a bankruptcy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bankruptcy that completely destroys one person's sense of self is the exact catalyst another person uses to finally clear the slate and start that bakery they've been dreaming about for a decade.
Exactly. It's the exact same financial event, but totally different labels.
Which tells us something really profound about the mechanics of reality, doesn't it?
It does. It tells us reality itself is completely indifferent to our labels. The universe does not have a ledger where it marks you down as a success or a failure.
There's no cosmic scoreboard.
No, those are human cognitive overlays. They don't exist in physics. They only exist in our minds.
But, okay, if they only exist in our minds, why do they wield such terrifying power over us? Like, why does a bad performance review physically hurt?
That's a great question. It's because of how we use those concepts. Before a person deeply examines their own mind, what Bandra might refer to as a state before awakening, they use success as a psychological mirror.
A mirror. Okay, explain that.
Well, we have this deep evolutionary need to know that we are safe and valuable to the tribe, right?
Sure, yeah.
But instead of generating that worth internally, we look to external, entirely subjective metrics to determine our intrinsic value.
We look at the promotion and literally tell ourselves the promotion means I matter.
Exactly. Or we look at the bank account and think the wealth means I am finally safe. We offshore our self-worth to unpredictable external events.
We hand the keys to our psychological stability over to the stock market.
To the stock market, to our boss's mood, to the social media algorithm.
Man, that sounds exhausting.
Oh, well,
We need that external validation because we just haven't built an internal foundation.
precisely.
It reminds me of the applause analogy that comes up in Bandra's philosophy.
Yeah.
Think about a performer standing on a stage, receiving this massive standing ovation.
Oh, yeah. The crowd is roaring.
Right. And biologically, that's a rush. It's this massive dopamine and serotonin cocktail flooding the brain. It feels incredible.
Naturally, it feels wonderful.
Yeah.
But here is the inescapable reality of the theater. Audiences always leave.
Always.
The lights always turn off, the chairs get folded up, and if your entire identity, your fundamental belief that you have a right to exist, is built on that clapping.
The silence that follows must be absolutely deafening.
It is.
I kind of picture it like building your dream house on a rented foundation. The minute the lease is up, the minute the audience stops clapping and goes home to their own lives, your entire sense of self collapses into the basement.
That rented foundation is the exact mechanism driving the hedonic treadmill.
Right.
The silence in that empty theater is so psychologically unbearable that you have to immediately scramble to generate more noise.
You need another project, another promotion, another hit of validation.
Yes. You end up spending your entire life chasing echoes because you are just terrified of the silence.
Hold on, though. I struggle with this a bit.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the applause truly doesn't matter, and the silence is perfectly fine, why am I putting in those 80-hour weeks? Doesn't this whole philosophy just lead to total apathy?
I hear this all the time.
Right. Because if we stop attaching our identity to success, won't we just become vegetables sitting on the couch? Like, why strive to cure diseases or build bridges or write symphonies if the outcome doesn't define us?
That is the ego's immediate, terrifying defense mechanism kicking in.
Really?
Yes. It screams, if I let go of my anxiety, I will stop achieving. But the underlying psychology of human motivation is actually the exact opposite. Letting go of that identity attachment doesn't destroy your ambition. It liberates it.
Liberated ambition. Uncoupling the action from the identity.
Exactly. Think about the massive cognitive load of attaching your literal self-worth to every single thing you do. Let's look at a concert pianist, for example.
Yeah.
If that pianist sits at the bench and they are playing to prove to the audience, to their demanding parents, and to themselves that they are a genius worthy of love,
The pressure is insane.
the physical and mental tension is immense.
Yeah. Every single missed note is a strike against their soul.
Yeah.
It's not just a mistake, it's a personal tragedy. It proves they're an imposter.
The stakes are impossibly high, which actually stifles creativity, it induces performance anxiety, and ultimately, it ruins the music.
Wow.
But if they are operating with liberated ambition, they play because the music itself is the point.
The joy of it.
The mechanics of playing, the flow state, the beauty of the composition, that intrinsic joy is the primary motivator.
So missed note is just a missed note.
Exactly. It's auditory feedback, it's physics, it's not a character flaw.
So a writer can write a novel without needing it to hit the bestseller list to validate their existence.
Yeah.
They just write because the story demands to be told.
Yes.
Or a scientist investigates a hypothesis because the mystery of the universe is fascinating, not because they demand a Nobel Prize to prove they are smart.
The action becomes so much lighter. It becomes authentic. You are finally participating directly with reality rather than trying to extort reality for self-esteem.
Trying to extort reality. That's a great way to put it.
When you drop the heavy baggage of your ego, your performance actually improves. And this radical shift in mechanism applies just as strongly to our search for meaning as it does to success.
Oh, the search for meaning. We treat meaning like it's buried treasure,
You really do.
like it's a physical noun we have to go out and dig up somewhere.
We assume it's an object hidden somewhere in our chronological future. We think, meaning is waiting for me behind the correct career. Once I get that specific job title, my life will suddenly have meaning.
Yeah, or if I just move to a cabin in the Pacific Northwest, or if I just find my perfect soulmate, then I'll find my meaning.
Right.
It's what Bandra calls the myth of the cosmic envelope, right?
Yes, the cosmic envelope.
We act like the universe has a highly classified secret assignment with our specific name on it, and we're all just sitting around in the waiting room of life, waiting for some divine receptionist to hand us the envelope so we can finally start living.
The waiting room is a perfect analogy, because while you are sitting there waiting for the envelope to arrive, you are completely missing the actual reality right in front of you.
We miss the present.
Meaning isn't found out there in the future. It is generated. It is created through deep, undivided participation in the present moment.
Meaning through presence. Okay, let's break down how that actually works, because frankly, it sounds almost too simple.
Well, look at the neurology of attention. When you give your full, undivided attention to a task, you enter what psychologists call a flow state.
Right, the zone.
The default mode network in your brain, the part that constantly chatters about the past and neurotically worries about the future, it actually quiets down.
It just shuts up for a minute.
Exactly. Meaning emerges from that state of complete neural and physical presence. A gardener feeling the texture of the soil, a teacher explaining a difficult math concept to a struggling child, a doctor truly listening to a patient's fears.
The activity itself becomes the meaning because of the quality of attention brought to it.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening right now, on your commute or, while you're folding the laundry? It means your purpose isn't some grand cinematic destination you have to furiously map out.
No, it's not.
What if your purpose right now is simply to fold the laundry with complete total attention? What if purpose unfolds through participation rather than prediction?
That is a profound reframing, but I have to say it inevitably crashes into a very harsh practical reality.
How so?
Well, it is relatively easy to be deeply present and find meaning when you're gardening on a beautiful sunny afternoon.
Sure.
It is significantly harder when a massive storm rolls in and washes away your entire house. How do we find meaning when the present moment is completely chaotic, when life just goes entirely off script?
Which it always, always does, no matter how meticulously we plan.
Without fail.
And Joe Bandra is actually the perfect case study for this unpredictability. Because before writing about the nature of reality, he spent decades working in clinical engineering.
Right, which is an incredibly structured field. Calibration, medical equipment maintenance, strict hospital protocol.
Yeah, it's a highly structured, scientifically predictable, deeply tangible field. He wasn't sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop his whole life.
Not at all.
He never imagined he would end up writing books about profound philosophy or speaking to massive audiences about mysticism or having this life-altering awakening experience at 4:08 in the morning. His life completely, radically rewrote itself.
And what's fascinating here is how the deeper intelligence of life often only makes sense in hindsight.
There's this old saying he brings up that perfectly captures this. Man proposes, reality disposes.
It's so true.
You can propose a nice, straight, highly logical 5-year plan, and reality will immediately dispose of it and drop you straight into a labyrinth.
But the fascinating psychological mechanism here is how the human mind processes that labyrinth. Narrative psychology shows us that while we are in the middle of the chaotic detours, it feels like pure, senseless suffering.
It feels awful.
But looking back in hindsight, those detours are often the exact crucibles required for our development. The setbacks are the actual teachers.
Like the agonizing breakup that felt like the end of the world leads you to move to a new city, where you end up finding the career you actually love and meeting your actual spouse.
Exactly. Now, it is absolutely crucial to clarify the mechanics of this. This does not mean everything happens for a reason in some toxic, dismissive, fatalistic way.
Oh yeah, let's make that really clear.
Reality doesn't hand out tragedy or trauma just to teach you a neat little life lesson.
That'd be pretty cruel.
It would. But it does mean that meaning emerges from how we meet that trauma.
Which brings us directly to Viktor Frankl. For anyone unfamiliar, Frankl was a brilliant psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He endured unimaginable, unspeakable horrors in multiple concentration camps.
Yes. And Frankl's core realization, which became the foundation of an entire school of psychology called logotherapy, was that a human being can survive almost any external circumstance if they can discover a meaning within it.
And this is the critical, often misunderstood part. Finding meaning didn't make Frankl's pain magically disappear.
No, not at all.
The physical starvation in the camps was still biologically real. The freezing cold was still real. The grief of losing his family was still agonizingly real.
The physical and emotional suffering was absolute. It wasn't bypassed. But because he found a purpose, whether it was comforting a fellow prisoner in the barracks, holding on to the mental image of his wife's face, or mentally reconstructing his lost psychological manuscript, that purpose radically transformed his relationship to the pain.
The pain stops being just senseless torture and becomes a medium for the meaning.
Exactly. Living without psychological lack does not give you a magical, impenetrable force field.
Unfortunately.
Right. Your biology will still age. You will still experience profound grief. The economy will crash. The car will break down. You will get sick.
Life happens.
Life happens. What shifts is your internal resistance. You stop demanding that reality conform strictly to your personal preferences.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back a little.
Go for it.
Because if I hear, stop demanding reality conform, my brain instantly goes, so I just roll over and take it.
Yeah.
If I get a terrible, unfair medical diagnosis or I lose my job because of corporate greed, does cooperating with life mean I just sit back passively and say, oh, well, I guess this is happening. I surrender.
That is the most common trap when people encounter the concept of acceptance. People confuse acceptance with passivity or weakness.
Right, they sound similar.
But it is not passive resignation. It is a radical shift in problem solving. Instead of furiously asking, how do I force reality to rewind and match the plan I made yesterday? You ask, given the undeniable reality of this exact moment, what is life inviting me to do now?
It's the river and the rock analogy Bandra uses.
Exactly. Look at the physics of a river encountering a massive boulder in its path.
The water doesn't stop and try to punch the rock out of existence.
No, it doesn't waste all its kinetic energy fighting an immovable object. It assesses the contours of the obstacle, and it flows gracefully and powerfully around it.
One approach exhausts itself in futile, angry resistance. The other approach reaches the ocean.
Exactly. The water isn't weak. The water will eventually carve a massive canyon out of that solid rock. It is incredibly powerful precisely because it adapts to the shape of reality. It takes the path of participation, not resistance.
So if we define success as full participation in the present moment, and wisdom is flowing like that river, We eventually have to face the ultimate barrier.
We do.
What happens when the river finally reaches the ocean? When we hit Chapter 31 in Bandra's work, the final appointment,
Yes.
the one thing on our calendar that nobody has ever successfully canceled.
Death, the great unknown.
And yet it is the one thing we spend our entire lives frantically avoiding. Think about the bizarre, incredibly mundane things we discuss just to fill the silence. We obsess over careers, we obsess over politics, we endlessly debate sports statistics for games we aren't even playing.
We stress over investments.
Yes, we will passionately debate whether our neighbor Dave should have planted hydrangeas or hostas.
We will dedicate thousands of hours of our finite lives to discussing landscaping, simply because we will discuss literally anything to avoid acknowledging our own biological impermanence.
Because death threatens everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It threatens our relationships, our savings accounts, our carefully curated photo albums. It threatens identity itself.
It absolutely does. In psychology, there is a fascinating framework called terror management theory.
Oh, I've heard of this.
The core idea is that the underlying, deeply subconscious terror of our own death is the hidden engine driving almost all human behavior and culture.
That's wild. So it's all just a defense mechanism.
Much of it, yes. It's why we build massive stone monuments with our names carved into them. It's why we obsessively accumulate wealth, secretly hoping that money will act as a buffer against mortality.
It's why we so desperately want to leave a legacy.
Exactly. The biological organism innately senses its expiration date, and the ego frantically scrambles to build something, anything, that feels permanent.
But biologically speaking, what actually dies? Because the mechanics of death are pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
The heart muscle stops pumping oxygen. The brain's electrical signals flatline.
Right. The organism ceases to function as a unified, integrated whole. But physics and chemistry tell a very different story about the components. The atoms that make up your body remain. The molecules remain. The carbon, the oxygen, the nitrogen, they do not vanish into nothingness. They simply disperse. They're recycled back into nature.
So biologically, we're essentially just rearranging the Lego blocks of the universe.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, the carbon atoms currently in my hand might have been forged in the heart of a dying star billions of years ago, spent time in a fern during the Jurassic period, and eventually they'll end up in the soil or in a tree or in another person.
Yes.
The blocks don't disappear. The castle just gets taken apart and put back into the big cosmic bin.
The biological recycling is an undeniable scientific fact.
But the real question Bandra is asking here is, was the castle ever the whole story? Was the temporary arrangement of Lego blocks the entirety of your existence?
And that leads us straight into the concept of the continuity of existence. And we don't even have to look at death to see this happening. We can look at our own identity right now while we are fully alive. Think about who you were when you were 7 years old.
Oh man, that was a long time ago.
Right. It is essentially the ship of Theseus paradox applied to human biology and psychology. Over a span of years, virtually every cell in your body regenerates. The physical 7-year-old body you inhabited is literally gone.
It's dust.
But it's not just physical. The beliefs you held at 7 are gone. Your emotional reactions, your social roles, your entire personality, all of it has completely transformed.
If I met the 7-year-old version of me today, we would have absolutely nothing in common except maybe a strong preference for certain snacks.
Right.
Everything attached to the label I am has completely changed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, despite the total turnover of the physical cells and the psychological traits, there is a singular thread of continuity, the sheer fundamental fact of being.
The raw sensation of existence itself.
Yes, you existed then and you exist now. The content of your experience changed entirely, but the container of awareness remained constant.
Which is exactly what mystics have been pointing at for thousands of years. They didn't have neurobiology or quantum physics, but they arrived at this exact conclusion through intense, direct observation of their own minds.
Exactly. Look at the Christian mystics, for example. When they spoke of eternal life, they didn't view it merely as your specific ego continuing to exist in a fluffy cloud forever.
Playing a harp.
Right. They described it as a timeless participation in the divine, a state of being that exists outside the limitations of chronological time altogether.
And the Buddhists took a totally different angle, diving straight into the deep end of impermanence.
Yes, constant change.
They realized everything is constantly arising and passing away. There is no solid, permanent self to defend. But by realizing there's nothing to defend, the anxiety drops, and you find this profound, unshakable freedom.
And the Hindu tradition provides perhaps the most famous articulation, Atman and Brahman. Through intense meditation, by quieting the default mode network and stripping away every layer of external identity, they concluded that the individual spark of consciousness, the Atman, is fundamentally identical to the universal ground of reality, Brahman.
Right. The classic analogy they use is the wave and the water. The wave rises up, crests, crashes, and disappears, but the water remains. Although, frankly, I am a little tired of the wave analogy.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets thrown around in so many yoga studios, it's kind of lost its punch for me.
Well, fortunately, Bandra offers a much more compelling, modern framework in his book, The Novel.
The novel. Okay, yes, I love this one. Let's really unpack this. Imagine a classic book, like Sherlock Holmes. You open the book and the characters appear. They have intense, complicated lives. Sherlock solves impossible crimes. Watson worries about his friend. Moriarty schemes in the shadows.
They're very busy.
They live, they love, they struggle, they fight, and eventually the story concludes and the characters vanish from the narrative.
But what remains? The paper.
The paper remains. The characters come and go, endlessly appearing and disappearing, suffering and triumphing. But the medium itself is completely unfazed.
Exactly.
The paper doesn't panic when Sherlock falls off the Reichenbach falls. The paper doesn't celebrate when a crime is solved. The paper simply, effortlessly holds the entire drama.
It is a brilliant paradigm shift. The mystics aren't suggesting that the specific character, your specific personality, your memories, your neuroses, your job title survives unchanged forever. They are suggesting that your deepest identity isn't the character at all.
Your true nature is the paper it's printed on.
Yes. Reality itself, which remains untouched by the appearance and disappearance of the forms printed on it.
I just marvel at that idea. The self might just be a character in a novel.
Yeah.
And this isn't just mystic poetry or philosophical speculation, is it? Hard physics is actively circling these exact concepts.
It really is. We can look at the work of physicist David Bohm.
Yes, David Bohm. Let's get into that.
He was one of the most significant and respected theoretical physicists of the 20th century. He proposed a radically holistic view of quantum mechanics called the explicate and implicate order.
Okay, let's really break that down because it sounds intimidating, but the actual mechanism is fascinating and it completely shifts how you view the world.
It does. Think of the explicate order as the physical world we see, touch, and interact with the appearances, the characters in the novel, the waves on the ocean. In the explicate order, things appear separate, localized in space and time. You are over there, I'm over here.
Right.
But Bohm theorized mathematically that this explicate order emerges from a deeper, undivided underlying reality, the implicate order.
Like an ocean of pure, interconnected potential.
Exactly. In the implicate order, everything is unfolded into everything else. The underlying order remains. There is no ultimate separation. An electron isn't a permanent little billiard ball bouncing around. It is a temporary unfolding from the implicate order into our explicate reality, and then it unfolds back again.
Wow.
What we perceive as birth and death, or appearance and disappearance, is just this continuous cosmic breathing, unfolding and enfolding.
It maps perfectly onto the physical law of conservation of energy, the first law of thermodynamics. Energy is never created, and it is never destroyed. It merely transforms. It changes expression.
Yes.
The kinetic energy of a falling apple becomes heat and sound energy when it hits the ground. It doesn't vanish into nothing. Disappearance is not the same thing as annihilation.
Exactly. The wave disappears as a distinct wave, but its kinetic energy and water molecules continue. It is staggering to consider the implications this has for human consciousness.
It really is. The idea that this self, I spend all day desperately defending the one trying to get the promotion, the one terrified of the silence after the applause, is just a temporary character in the novel.
It changes everything.
But how does one actually experience this realization without just reading about it in physics or philosophy books? Because reading a textbook on thermodynamics doesn't usually remove the visceral fear of death.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That requires a profound psychological shift, an experiential knowing. And Bandra grounds this deeply philosophical and scientific territory by sharing his own profound awakening experience.
This happened in April 2020.
Yes, April 2020.
Right in the middle of a time when the whole world was terrified, locked down, and obsessed with mortality.
Precisely. He describes a moment where the ordinary, deeply ingrained sense of being a separate, isolated, vulnerable individual simply ceased to exist.
Just vanished.
The psychological boundary between me and the rest of the universe dissolved entirely.
The character stepped off the paper for a moment.
Yes. But the crucial paradigm-shifting part of his description is that while the separate self vanished, existence did not. In fact, he describes the sheer sense of existence as being more vivid, more immediate, and more intensely real than ever before.
Which completely flips the script on what we are so afraid of. If the separate ego can entirely disappear, and yet life continues in full, vibrant HD, then maybe the separate ego isn't what we fundamentally are. Maybe death is only a threat to the story, not to the reality behind it.
It is a profoundly liberating possibility. But make no mistake, the human ego utterly despises this framework.
Oh, the ego hates a mystery. It wants a legally binding contract.
The ego craves guarantees. It wants a detailed, chronological timetable of exactly what happens the moment the brain flatlines. It wants architectural drawings of the afterlife, preferably with assigned seating.
Yes, it wants to know what the weather will be like and who's bringing the appetizers.
Exactly. But reality offers no such brochure. There is no pamphlet mapping out the implicate order for us. We are forced to encounter profound, irreducible mystery.
And perhaps mystery isn't a failure of our knowledge. Perhaps mystery is simply the most honest encounter with reality. When you look at the trajectory of human inquiry, the greatest scientists, the greatest philosophers, the greatest mystics, they don't end up at concrete, dogmatic certainty.
No, they don't.
They all eventually arrive at awe. They hit a boundary where reality inherently exceeds our brain's neurological capacity to conceptualize it. You can't fit the ocean into a teacup, no matter how clever or highly educated the teacup is.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it.
So what if we stop treating mortality like a grim math problem we're supposed to solve and start using it as a psychological tool? This brings up the ancient Stoics, who were absolute masters of applied philosophy.
Ah, yes, the practice of memento mori. Remember, you must die.
When you first hear that phrase, it sounds incredibly morbid. People think, why on earth would I want to dwell on my own death? I have enough stress, that's just going to make me depressed and anxious.
It is a natural reaction, but it completely misses the psychological utility of the practice. The Stoics didn't meditate on death to induce depression, they used it as a clarifying mechanism. It is a powerful cognitive framing tool. It's meant to wake you up.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How do we actually apply this? Think about yourself listening right now. If you deeply internalize the fact that your time is fundamentally finite, that the biological lease on this specific character will inevitably expire, how does that change your ordinary Tuesday afternoon?
It instantly recalibrates your dopamine and serotonin systems. It strips away the petty, superficial concerns that consume so much of our mental bandwidth.
Suddenly, holding on to a burning, bitter resentment against a coworker for a passive-aggressive email they sent 3 years ago seems utterly absurd.
Are you really going to waste one of your finite days being furious at a temporary character in the novel over an email? Of course not.
The awareness of an ending forces presence. In economics, scarcity creates value. The exact same principle applies to time. If a flower bloomed permanently, forever, without ever wilting, we would walk right past it. We wouldn't pay any attention to it.
It is the fragility that makes it beautiful. The fact that the petals will eventually fall is exactly why we stop to smell it.
Knowing death is real makes love fiercely urgent. It makes paying attention to the absolute most important thing you can do. Every single conversation you have, every cup of coffee you drink, every time you hug your kid, every ordinary Tuesday afternoon sitting in gridlock traffic, it is completely unrepeatable. You only get a finite number of them.
And that brings all of these seemingly disparate threads together. The myth of the success mirror, the liberation of our ambition, the art of flowing like a river when reality goes off script, and the ultimate mystery of the final appointment. They all point toward the exact same underlying truth.
It all leads to Bandra's ultimate synthesis of what actually matters when the curtain finally starts to come down. When psychologists look at people at the very end of their lives, the data is incredibly consistent. Nobody wishes they had spent more time impressing strangers on the internet. Nobody looks back and says, I really wish I had accumulated more opinions or obsessed more over my neighbor's landscaping.
What they wish for is profound in its simplicity. They wish they had loved more deeply. They wish they had laughed more often without self-consciousness or fear of judgment. They wish they had forgiven more freely, recognizing the shared, messy struggle of being human. They wish they had simply paid closer attention.
They wish they had paid attention to the paper rather than stressing themselves to death over the plot twists of the character.
And it is absolutely vital to emphasize that these are not lofty, esoteric, spiritual goals reserved for monks meditating in caves. They are deeply fundamentally human ones. It is entirely about how completely we participate in the sheer miracle of being alive.
It's such a grounding, clarifying perspective.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into Joe Bandra's upcoming book, The Nature of Reality, there is one final, truly mind-bending thought from the very end of the source text that I want to leave you with. We are not going to try to answer it. We couldn't even if we tried. I just want to let it hang in the air for you to ponder.
It is the ultimate question where quantum physics, profound philosophy, and mystical insight all beautifully converge.
We always ask if the individual person, the separate little character we call me, survives the event of death. But what if that is entirely the wrong question? If reality is the fundamental, unbroken ground from which all stars, planets, trees, bodies, and conscious minds emerge, what if birth and death belong only to forms? What if reality itself was never actually born?
A profound possibility worthy of your deepest contemplation.
Take that thought with you into the rest of your day. The next time you look at that rigid, stressful blueprint of your life, remember the disappearing ink. Remember the empty stage when the applause fades. And ask yourself, are you just the character, or are you the paper? Thanks for taking the deep dive with us. See you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevaeh's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by Finding Nevaeh.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nevaeh, available on Amazon and at findingnevaeh.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms.